Welcome to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm Dr. Kelly Livingston, a naturopathic physician and your guide to a new health reality, one that connects body, mind, and spirit. Together, we'll dive deep into the art and science of holistic healing. Through working with hundreds of women through midlife transitions, I've discovered something profound. Most of our physical and emotional challenges are rooted in a maladaptive stress response. And true healing begins when we regulate our nervous system. Each episode will explore complex health topics in simple, empowering ways, uncover the deeper wisdom within each of us, and share practical tools for nervous system regulation to help you awaken your vital force and create lasting wellness. So, if you're ready to reconnect with yourself, your health, and your purpose, let's begin this journey together so you can experience life more fully human and deeply healed. Hi, and welcome back to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm Dr. Kelly Livingston, and this is part 2 of our gut-brain axis series. So in part 1, we built out the model. We talked all about neural signaling through the vagus nerve, immune signaling through cytokines and inflammation, endocrine and metabolic pathways, and microbial metabolites that shape the terrain of our brain function. Today, in part 2, we're going to translate that into real clinical life, and we're going to talk about IBS, what it actually is and why it's so often misunderstood, IBD, a different terrain, and why immune tolerance is the core theme here, perimenopause, why everything gets louder in midlife, and the healing order, the sequence that prevents you from doing 1,000 gut things without getting lasting traction. So let's begin with IBS. IBS is one of the most misunderstood diagnoses in medicine. Irritable bowel syndrome is genuinely something that patients come to me with and they say, I don't understand. I was told I have IBS, but I don't really understand what's going on or what I'm supposed to do. I was told there's nothing to do for it. And they're typically told it's just what you're eating or it's just stress. And neither of those is really complete. IBS is best understood as a gut-brain signaling disorder characterized by altered motility, so changes in bowel movements, altered visceral sensitivity, so these patients tend to be hypersensitive to what they feel in their gut, altered autonomic tone, so that's why we're always talking about the nervous system, and a gut that's become louder to the brain. A key concept here is this visceral hypersensitivity, meaning normal distension or sensation can be experienced as discomfort, urgency, cramping, or pain because the nervous system is amplifying the signal. So the gut-brain axis is telling your brain there's danger here, and patients are feeling that experience. And here's what the data shows. Neuroimaging studies have found that subsets of people with IBS, particularly those with hypersensitivity, show differences in brain activation in areas like the insula and anterior cingulate cortex during visceral stimulation. So this is reflecting these altered processing of gut sensations. Translation, in many IBS cases, it's not the gut that's structurally damaged, even though they feel like it is. It's the gut and brain that are misattuned, and the threat system is involved in this misattunement. So this is why you can't treat IBS only with food rules, although food might be playing a role, right? Because if you don't address the nervous system, the body stays in this listening too closely, hypersensitivity, high alert mode. This is so key in IBS. And I'll have a separate episode on IBS and on IBD, but I felt like the gut-brain axis is such a cornerstone to treating both of these that anyone listening to this episode probably either has personal experience or knows someone who does with IBS and or IBD. And as I mentioned in my SIBO episode, SIBO or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or really any sort of dysbiosis, so imbalance of good and bad bacteria or too many bacteria in the wrong place, can all contribute to IBS. So as I said, I'll have an episode just on IBS, but you can get started if this applies to you by going and listening to the SIBO episode. Okay, now let's talk about IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, such as Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. A huge part of my practice has been working with patients with IBD since 2013. So I have hundreds of case studies. And again, I'll have episodes on, I can even break it further down, Crohn's and colitis, because I think it would be very helpful for you if you are someone struggling with one of those. So IBD is not the same terrain as IBS. IBD involves immune dysregulation, barrier disruption, microbiome changes, inflammatory cascades that show up on labs. So we might be looking for antibodies, definitely looking for inflammatory markers. We're tracking things like calprotectin markers in IBD patients. And there's often much deeper depletion in the system. And there's always an autoimmune trigger. So remember, when I talk about autoimmune disease, I talk about it as a bonfire. So in IBD patients, I'm trying to figure out what is throwing fuel into and onto that fire. I want to be precise here. Stress does not cause IBD alone, but stress absolutely can influence flare frequency. So how often are these patients getting flares, symptom intensity, healing capacity, sleep quality, which is what provides your body with the ability to heal, immune tolerance, and resilience, because autonomic state modulates immune tone. So again, getting our body into a healing parasympathetic state is going to be absolutely key for this patient. You already knew it was important because we're talking about the gut-brain axis and the vagus nerve, but absolutely mindful practices, breath work, laying on the floor and relaxing, reading a book, sitting outside by a body of water, walking in the woods, spending time in nature in the sun, all of these are going to contribute and be part of the healing journey for these patients. When the body lives in chronic sympathetic activation or dorsal vagal shutdown, we lose the physiological conditions that support repair. So in IBD, we care about inflammation reduction, first and foremost, right? In that pillar one of the Vital Spirit method, we're recognizing and removing sources of inflammation, mucosal barrier support, immune regulation. So what's adding fuel to that immune fire, microbial ecology. So again, we're looking at microbiome. We're assessing how healthy the microbiome is. Is there something taking over the microbiome that we don't want there? Is there something that should be there that we need to support with diet? And nervous system stabilization, not because it's psychosomatic, but because the gut is an immune organ. And in IBD, immunity is so important, and autoimmunity is the bowels attacking itself. And this is all shaped by the nervous system. And is your body in a rest and digest state, or is it in this fight or flight state? So sometimes patients think there's nothing to do about inflammatory bowel disease except to go on a medication to suppress the immune system. That is absolutely not the case. I have had amazing success with patients over the years with Crohn's and colitis, which are both inflammatory bowel diseases. So please be on the lookout for those episodes as I produce them if that's of interest to you. Okay, so now let's talk midlife. So perimenopause amplifies the gut-brain axis because hormones modulate gut motility, so the movement of your bowels, permeability, so food antigens or metabolites of any sort of pathogen crossing out from the gut and into your bloodstream, which also plays a role in IBD, immune signaling, neurotransmitter sensitivity, and stress resilience. So as your hormones are shifting through perimenopause and menopause, the gut-brain axis is the interface for all of these changes, essentially. So I might hear from a woman that she used to be able to tolerate coffee, or she used to be able to drink wine, or eat certain carbohydrates or sugar or dairy, or even tolerate high periods of stress, and she suddenly cannot. And she thinks, what's wrong with me? What's going on? I don't understand this. And often there's nothing wrong, right? It's just our body saying, hey, my bucket is overflowing here. Sometimes what has changed is our buffering capacity, our window of tolerance, our nervous system flexibility, our sleep, our inflammatory threshold, and our hormonal rhythm. So again, as hormones are fluctuating, it's going to impact essentially how much our bucket can hold before it overflows. So perimenopause isn't creating chaos out of nowhere, although it might feel that way sometimes. It's really exposing what was already fragile and what was already contributing to your bucket overflowing. And this is why midlife is often the moment that your body says, "Hey, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't do this anymore." And the messages that you get from your body are actual signposts guiding you to what needs to change if we can listen to them. And that's what brings me to the healing order. So now we get to the part that makes this all actionable. If you treat the gut brain axis as a list of hacks or food rules, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to burn out and you're probably not going to see results. So I highly recommend that you treat it as a sequence and then it becomes coherent. So here's the order that I find actually holds in real life clinically, and it aligns with naturopathic philosophy, of course, and the therapeutic order. So, first things first is regulation. Before you do anything intense with food restriction or protocols or getting rid of bacteria, you have to stabilize the autonomic state. We've talked so much about this because you cannot digest well when your body's in fight or flight. You're not in rest, digest, and heal. You cannot repair tissue when you're in threat. You cannot rebuild resilience when you're in threat. And so, in naturopathic medicine, when we're removing obstacles to cure, a dysregulated nervous system is part of that obstacle to cure. Now, it's my job as a clinician to tease out, is there something in the gut that's contributing to that dysregulation and to know the order of operations? But essentially, start working on regulation, if nothing else. Start with a simple breathwork practice. Go back to the episodes where I walk you through some of those. Second is rhythm and sleep. So, as we move from the gut brain axis and the vital spirit method, if you recall, we're working more on stress, nervous system state, HPA axis, right? And circadian rhythm is so key here. It's the master regulator of immune and hormonal function. So, light exposure, sleep timing, meal timing, these are all foundational. And then lowering inflammatory load. So this is where we address obvious drivers. So you've got your inflammatory foods that we're going to remove from the diet. You've got alcohol, unstable blood sugar. So your blood sugar going up and down and moving your cortisol up and down with it. Chronic overtraining, I would put in here. Unresolved infections or dysbiosis, those will contribute to inflammation as well. Constipation and toxin recirculation. So we've got lots of episodes on drainage and detox, and all of that is key in this phase. I would also consider emotional regulation and again, nervous system work, breath work, moving things through your body emotionally in this category. And then supporting digestion and absorption. So looking at things like stomach acid, bile flow, enzymes, chewing your food like Dr. Z talked about, pacing. These are basic mechanics, but you'd be surprised how many people are not doing these well or how many bodies are not doing these well. Sometimes patients are on PPIs. We're suppressing our stomach acid. We're not chewing our food. We're stressed out when we're eating, right? So there's lots of reasons why you might not be digesting and absorbing. And again, that's something I look at in a stool test, because if you don't absorb, you don't build your neurotransmitters, you don't build your hormones. And again, you don't build resilience. And then we're rebuilding the microbiome. So we're strengthening diversity of the good bacteria and short chain fatty acid production that we talked about before. And we're often slowly and strategically, especially in sensitive guts, adding foods back in. Maybe we took some things out to reduce inflammation and we're adding things back in to repopulate the microbiome. Then that's when I might shift to more targeted protocols. So remember, we talked in the SIBO episode about not just jumping into rid protocols and getting rid of everything, right? But after we've done some of this other work, we might be targeting SIBO. We might be doing antimicrobial phases. We might be doing IBD mucosal support protocols. So that's where we're using our mucilaginous herbs, right? And we're healing and sealing the gut lining. Maybe we are using targeted probiotics or psychobiotics to work on different neurotransmitters. Maybe we're using particular bacteria to increase our GABA production, right? We can have so much fun in this phase. And most people try to start here. They try to start with protocols and they start at this last step. And that, I think, is why they get stuck on the hamster wheel of healing. And very often when we're on that hamster wheel of healing, we're not focusing on meaning making or co regulation or the more human layer to this all that I don't ever want to miss. So let's say this quiet part out loud. In midlife gut brain cases, you can do everything right and still feel stuck if the system is missing safety, relationship, meaning and purpose, co regulation with another safe nervous system who is regulated, time in nature, and rest that is real. You can start with rest and you will be improving your gut brain axis health. That's what's so cool about the gut brain axis. Very often, it is asking for less. And these nature cure and nervous system regulation tools are not optional in the work that I do with patients. They are biology, they're a biological imperative. Co regulation is necessary for healing, even if it's just with a pet and you're not ready for people yet. Their nervous system is not calmed by just supplements. I love herbs. You will see me use supplementation, but so many patients that come to me and say they weren't able to heal a gut brain axis disorder or diagnosis it's really because they skipped the nervous system part. It's why I do the work that I do, because the gut brain axis is calmed by predictability, connection, embodiment, authenticity, and a life that isn't constantly overriding the body's signals, but listening to it and in communication and relationship with it. And the gut brain axis it's literally the bridge for all of this. It's about what kind of life your body believes it's living, and it's about helping the body get into a healing state. This is why every single patient gets a mind, body, nervous system component woven into each protocol. Sometimes that is the protocol. Okay, so now I think you get it, right? The gut brain axis is a communication system. It's going to impact our mood, our motivation, energy, digestion, of course, immune system, and our hormones. And they're not separate categories. They're outputs of one living terrain. And when we have symptoms arise, it's not our body betraying us. These are not symptoms to suppress. It's our body communicating. And when you learn the language, you get options. When you apply the right order, healing stops being chaotic and it starts being permanent. So if this gut brain axis series was helpful for you, please subscribe and follow. And if you're able to, leave a review and download these episodes. Downloads will increase the number of women that we can reach, and share with a friend who's stuck in the loop of it's just stress or it's just food. And if you're listening and you're thinking, this is totally me, I need a real plan, then I want to invite you to join Calm Gut, Clear Mind, which essentially means that you download this 21-day program that I have designed specifically for the gut-brain loop. Calm Gut, Clear Mind is designed to address digestive symptoms, anxiety, low mood, brain fog, fatigue, nervous system dysregulation, and the perimenopause amplification that makes all of this louder. And for the new year, I'll be offering a flash sale. I have a limited time discount up there. So if you've been wanting to join, keep an eye on the details in the show notes and on my Instagram profile so you don't have to keep piecing this together all alone. I got a great message from a patient the other day that a friend of hers did the Calm Gut, Clear Mind 21-day reset. And she went and checked on her blood sugar with her doctor. And she had previously been pre-diabetic, and she's not a patient. She just did the reset, and she reported back that her blood sugar has now normalized and markers of inflammation had gone down. And her doctor was like, what are you doing? So definitely check that out if that resonates with you. And know that your body is not failing, right? It's speaking to you. And when you understand the conversation, you can finally start responding in a way that creates lasting change. Remember, knowledge is power and the body heals. I'll see you next time.